Okay, this is the Look Like You Train Lower Body Handbook video companion for those who can't be bothered reading, which is completely understandable. But also, make sure you have the PDF up and you can follow along. And maybe I've added in some extra things along the way. So, introductions. Your legs won't grow despite smashing them in the gym all the time. Like, you do a million exercises, they're sore all the fucking time, but you're like, why aren't they growing? I was one of these. I treated leg day like it's gospel. Like, I pushed so fucking hard all the time and was very, adamant that, oh yeah, I'm training hard enough. This is it. But my legs, year after year, never seem to grow, which is really strange. So essentially this handbook is, designed from the issues that I had with growing my legs and what solutions both myself and my wife sort of went through to get there from, both our own coaching experience and as well from getting coached and doing courses and seminars and all that sort of shit along the way. So one of the real reasons that your legs won't grow is that, and also all muscle groups in general, is that it's not about how tired you feel, how much it burns, or how sore you are the next day. Muscles just ultimately just comes down to mechanical tension, which is the easiest way to understand is essentially just pulling force your muscle fibers have. So what that looks like from a training perspective is that from rep 1 to rep whatever is in your rep range, you should be training with a rep range, by the way, that it's slowing down towards the end. That means that those contractile fibers are being able to hypertrophy and then be, telling the brain essentially, hey, we need more fibers here if this is going to be a consistent thing, and then they grow. So it's not about doing drop sets or how many sets you spend 4 hours in the gym and then you vomit in a bin. It's not really anything to do with that. Like, training hard does have those symptoms sometimes, but really the main thing is that you're stopping the set before it gets hard, because training legs is hard. It's like a full body. It's not just your legs, but also the burn and the feeling of it is absolutely horrible. So really the biggest thing that I see when men and women come up to me and they go, I want bigger legs. Well, I want to see how you train. I want to see the intensity that you bring. Leg taxes your entire system harder than upper body work because you're using larger muscles with heavier loads. You think about how big your leg muscles are compared to your arms. Well, they're going to take a lot more oxygen. They're going to take a lot more, food and intensity to grow. So, both with the cardiovascular stress of doing a big set on a pendulum, hack squats, leg press, they're big exercises and require a lot of oxygen. So that stresses you out. You get gassed, your muscle burns, and, the mental fatigue reaches higher levels. And this often causes you to go, well, it's too much. I'm going to pull out. I'm going to pull the pin too soon. To reach real muscle failure, it really is, like I said, is your rep speed slows down. Your range of motion might start to sort of break down. Your like being super technical with your form is a good thing, but usually as you get closer to failure, there's little breakdowns in it, and you start making weird faces and saying fucked up things. If the weight is still moving from the same speed from rep 1 to completion, you still have a lot more reps in the tank, and potentially the load selection was off. Because what really matters here is like where you start to grow is anywhere from 0 to 2 RIR left in reserve. Most of the time with big movements, like say squat for instance, you just want to leave 1 in the tank. Going to complete failure on those exercises is just not really beneficial. And also a lot of the further reading is sort of saying that it's not beneficial at all. But I would somewhat disagree that it's important to go to failure, or else you don't know where that is. So again, making sure that you're on a good machine, say like something like leg extension, it's very easy to go to complete and utter failure, but also your ability to determine where that failure point is also very skewed. This is where training with a coach or having accountability of a training partner can really help as well. So the goal isn't really just to fuck yourself up. Everyone, builds up leg days. It's, oh, you fucking, it's this giant thing. You got to really fuck yourself up for big legs. It's like, that sort of just comes from following a program and tracking your progression and pushing yourself and getting that measurable change of like, okay, weights are slowly going up over the training block. I'm chasing down reps. My rep speed is starting to slow down from rep 1 to completion. All of that stuff really does come into it. The thing that really starts to drive up and the intensity that's needed is that to continually to let your lower body adapt, well, you're going to need heavier and heavier stimulus and pushing yourself closer and closer to that failure point. Because remember, that's a moving goalpost. If you're listening to this and you're just starting training legs, your goal is to just rock up to the gym consistently. It doesn't really have to matter about rep speed and all that sort of stuff. But as you start to train further and further and you want bigger and bigger legs, well, that goalpost changes and your perception of reps in reserve changes. And so for someone just looking in, your RAR 1 or 2 might look like 0 for someone else. So you just got to keep in mind that your level of adaptation needs to keep going. Intensity needs to keep going if you want more and more adaptation, because if you keep doing what you're doing, you're just going to keep getting what you're getting. So my favorite thing about, growing legs is, and it has really blown up my legs, is using lower reps on the bigger sort of compounding movements like your hack squats and stuff. Do higher reps work? Absolutely. But why do so much more when you can get an effective rep range of say 6 to 10 as opposed to doing 10 to 15? Both of them work efficiently, but I would say for someone who is watching this, you're probably quite time poor. You probably have a busy family and career. You don't have 4 hours to spend in the gym. So you want to sort of get in and out of there and, maximum on a larger end of rest and recovery, 90 minutes. Okay. So you want to be making sure that, we don't have that a lot of time, because like higher rep sets have sort of shown that the recoverability of them is a lot higher, because you've got that cardiovascular stress. You've got the ability to maintain that good position for that amount of time. It's stressing your entire system. So the sooner that you can sort of get there using a heavier weight, the better. To caveat that, you need to be making sure you have really good form and you're taking that set, close to proximal failure as well. Like some people get confused and they go, oh, 2 sets of 6 to 10, that's nothing. I can't grow from that. You definitely can. You just haven't learned how to train to failure, close to failure, I should say, properly using the right intensity and techniques and stuff as that. So, locking in for a brief focused effort on a few hard reps and push your quads to their true limit before needing to vomit into the bin interferes is really the goal here. And it's something that has really worked wonders for both for my quads and the men and women that I coach as well. So, here's a big drawback I was talking about here, is that higher reps can produce more muscle damage, which means that you're going to be sorer for longer, your recoverability is going to be longer. And this is why, there's that joke going around like, I train legs once a month, because you get so sore from it, probably because you've been doing 8 to 10 exercises, or 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps, because you've got a bit of a chip on your shoulder as far as thinking that you're hardcore. I definitely did that. So that's why I mentioned that. And a lot of guys do. It's like, no, I train hard. I'm sure you do, but what we need to do is package that into a much more time-effective way to get what the results that you're already sort of getting in a much faster, less volume amount of package. So for compound exercise like squats, leg press, deadlift movements, 6 to 10 is a great target. That can go down to as low as 3 to 5. That still shows great studies to be very effective for hypertrophy as well. But again, when you are going down to these really low rep sets, your skill for training needs to be quite high as well. So, but again, for someone who is quite new and needs to learn the skill and have a bit more repetition under the bar, and depending on what exercise it's doing, 8 to 15 reps is still fantastic. Again, like I said, if your reps are starting to slow down and you're taking them close to failure as well. So again, like I said here, lower reps are a great way to save time, which, like I said, if you're reading this guide, you want to get more bang for your buck. Step 2 is prioritize machine exercises. There is absolutely nothing wrong with barbell stuff if that's all you've got access to. I've got plenty of people who just train out of a garage gym or whatever, and all I've got access to is barbell work. You can grow monster quads with a barbell work. Tom Platz is a perfect example as a bodybuilder. Lee Priest, all these guys started using barbells. Arnold Schwarzenegger, all the guys back then, there was no real hack squats until I think the early 80s or something like that. That enabled you to have that level of stability to be able to squat down and take things really close to failure without the skill of having a barbell on your back. So machines are a fantastic way, because especially when you're dieting down, you don't really have the mental fatigue to brace correctly, lock in all the bar. You might have some mobility stuff with your shoulders. With the machine, it's all out in front of you and you can just push away, and it's very targeted to the quads all the way through. So, which allows you to have this perception of extra effort, and you can push harder to real failure. So hack squats, leg press, pendulum removes a lot of that extra sort of skill as far as bracing. And also as well, I find you're able to adjust your movements a lot more readily because you don't have to balance the barbell. Simple changes like foot position, for example. If you're a woman and want to build more glutes, having a lower foot, a higher foot placement allows that sort of hips to take a little bit more over, and then for more quads, you would bring that that foot down onto a lower platform. Adding in some like Olympic lifting shoes as well, if your focus is quads as well, to really drive that knee over toe is a fantastic way as well. It just gives you a much more level of control that you can really sort of get from free weights. Free weights aren't bad. They're fucking amazing. And if you're new to training, you should be doing a lot of your stuff with free weights to learn the balance, the bracing and everything like that, because the carryover of that skill into machines will make you a better lifter as well. So, the last thing as well with this leg training is there's a couple of muscles that actually cross two joints. They're called biarticulate muscles. And they actually, without being in a certain position, aren't actually under any tension. They just sort of move across that joint. Whereas when you are in a leg extension, that trains the rectus femoris, which is the main sort of muscle down the middle of your quad, because the knee is bent and the hip is bent. It crosses two joints. It's now pinned. It can actually create tension. And the same goes with leg curls, with the short head of the biceps tendinosus, I think, is the one that has two heads. It has a long and a short. The short head is then trained in the seated hamstring curl. Is this a massive deal for the hamstring side of things? No. I would argue that with leg extensions, it is a massive deal, or else you are sort of missing that one of those main quad muscles to develop great legs as well. So, the point here is that machines are they don't build functional muscle, or that free weights should be avoided. It's like, use both. Like, it's perfectly fine to use both, but really what we want to look for here is, like, if we're targeting heavily the legs, well, we want the most stable platform that we can push hard as much as possible, which is a machine. So combine both. Now let's dive into, more specific deals on like individual lower body makeup. So we've got the quads here, quad 4, rectus femoris vastus intermedius that runs underneath the rec fem. So this is the one I was talking about that crosses the hip and the knee. Vastus lateralis, which is the big one here. And then everyone knows the medialis, which is the teardrop as well. So we all have this self-inflated idea that needs to be 6 hours long. We need to be vomiting. We need to be doing 16 different movements as far as that. But in all honesty, some of the best training programs that I've run has been some sort of compound squat, a leg extension, and a curl. That's it. And you might go, 3 exercises? That's nothing, bro. Absolutely. But it means on those 3 exercises, I'm going absolutely fucking ham to grow muscle as well. Okay. So really, like, this is where it gets a little bit overcomplicated. Is like, pick, one of these 3. You've got a pendulum here, hack squat, or Smith machine squat. Leg press is another great option as well, but leg press is a little bit more hip dominant than quad dominant, unless you have really good ankle mobility. Or the leg press is actually decent, that enables you to, drive that knee over your toe a little bit more. So a squat pattern should be your foundation. This should be your bread and butter. Now, whether you do leg extensions, leg curls and stuff all before it, or your abductions, it doesn't really matter. But this is the main staple, main driver. It's going to recruit the most fibers. It's going to be the hardest movement. It is really your bread and butter for, growing massive quads as well. So this is the main sort of focus, is picking one of these, 3, or a leg press, or there's other sort of squat things. You could do a drop squat. You could do... don't do a V squat, they're fucking terrible. But either way, most gyms will have something like this. And if they don't, well, you're this guy here, old Adrian, powerlifting Adrian, doing barbell squats and using dumbbells for lunges and stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that. You just be prepared that the skill aspect for these is higher, and you probably won't get noticeable leg gains as fast as if you can jump onto a machine. That's my 2 cents, but both are fantastic. So then in here, talking about the leg press here, and this is where foot placement really comes down to it as well. So like, if you've got shit ankle mobility like myself, I really always feel this through my glutes and very rarely get a lot of stimulus through my quads. This is why I choose the pendulum, because I can actually get that nice harsh angle of driving knees over toes and my hamstring kissing my calves. Is pretty much what we're after as far as a good looking squat movement as well, without the sort of the lower back sort of tucking under. So really making a good sort of conscious choice of which one it is. None of them are better than the other. They're just all tools. And, as far as like a programming standby, do fucking 16 weeks on a pendulum, then move to hack squat, then move to Smith, and then start again. Is an easy sort of model to focus on, and that way you see the progression across all of them as well. So leg extensions, in my opinion, is an absolute staple for the quads, is because, like I said, is that, that is a muscle that is just not trained in the squat pattern is the rec fem. So we need to be in this pinned position for the leg extension and the rec fem to actually work. Two great pieces of little kit that I've picked up over the years of training is one of these Hustler. Shout out to Hustler for making these. Like, he's just the man of the gym community for making this thing. Leg extension pad. You could also just roll up some yoga mats or whatever you have on hand, and a seat belt as well, because as you get heavier, your hips start to rise out of the machine. Having a seat belt, I think I ordered this one from Gym Pin, allows you to get more glued into the machine. So into the hammies and calves, we've got 4 hamstrings, but one of them is made up of 2 heads. So you've got here the bicep femoris and the long head. So I was wrong there. It's not the tendinosus. It is the femoris, semitendinosus, membranosus, and then you've got the gastroc, which is the main sort of 2 heads of your calf, and then you've got the soleus that runs underneath it as well. So the biggest thing that we want to really focus on here is like looking at this from a perspective of the same as like with our quads. We want some sort of big sort of hinge movement. All-time favorite is an RDL. You cannot beat it. Barbell, dumbbell on the machine. Do a good morning is another option as well. But again, if you don't have access to that, I would struggle to think that you don't have access to a barbell in that. You can use a weighted hyperextension is another fantastic way to build hamstrings and glutes, and stiff-legged deadlift as well. So these are your staple, your big compounds for building big glutes and hamstrings. And also the added bonus of RDLs is it builds up your erectors and makes a good thick back as well, which is really exciting. If you're looking as far as like you wanting to build your glutes as a woman or even as a man, having some sort of hinge in the lengthened position like this, and then something in the short of the like with the hyperextension, and then some sort of lunge is going to, and a thrust is probably all the movements that you really need to build glutes. And then you could sprinkle in some kickbacks and all that sort of stuff as well. But we want to make sure that we are hitting both sides of our legs. I don't want to sort of neglect it. I've found that as I progressed, having stronger hamstrings has allowed me to, progress with my squats and stuff like that as well, and not really suffer much knee pain or back pain really ever. So one of the biggest thing that everyone seems to get wrong with RDLs is they go too light. We get sort of hung up over chasing this stretch sensation, whereas really that stretch at the bottom isn't like mechanical in nature at all. You can just replicate it by pretty much standing on your heels and then bending over. That is just purely just a sensation. So this is why we need to make sure that we've got really good form in this, and where you're looking at it from a perspective that like everyone's biomechanics is different in their body. And this is why having someone like myself or, any other sort of coach that you work with, have a look at your actual form and see how deep you actually need to go. How far do you need to send your hips back to really engage those glutes and have that slight stretch of the hammies and go from there. That's why filming your lifts is so imperative as well. So again, the next option is add either of these 2 in. If I had an option, I would say seated leg curl, because it does train that short head of the biceps femoris, whereas this guy doesn't, because you can see that the hip bend isn't as great. Is that a massive deal? Is people going to go, oh, your biceps femoris isn't developed? If they're a fucking nerd, then maybe, but who cares about those people? As long as you have some sort of curl in there, it's going to be fine. Now for calves, it's probably the most skipped muscle group because we all leave it to the end. Pro tip is train calves first. Not only does this free up your ankles, it actually helps with your knee pain, and overall then it's done. 2 of my favorites is either standing or on a leg press, or this is a hack press, for instance. Both of those, you're going to be able to load them up really heavy. It's going to be fantastic for your development of your calves. Now, there's a debate that, you hit the soleus with the seated. Now, there's been lots of papers that have been released, and then that soleus gets hit just as well in standing as it does in a seated position, so you don't need to worry about that either as well. So when you're training your hip hinges, 2 tools to have is some figure 8 straps and also some verses. You can do figure 6s, because you don't want your grip to be the main thing that drops off before you actually reach, proximal failure with your exercises. So if you're not using straps, I would guarantee that you're not going heavy enough with your hinging movements. So very important to have as well, also for lunging and things like that. So how many days and how many sets? So Blue, you got not much. Green is the Goldilocks area, and then red, you got just too much. So really, if you're training with really high effort, around 4 to 8 direct sets per week is going to be enough. So with 10 being a reasonable sort of upper limit, and that's across sort of all the body parts as well. So it's like, you're doing 4 for quad and eight sets for quads, and then 8 sets for hammies and calves and things like that as well. But again, depending on where you're lagging, the frequency, you want to probably pick one up that more than the other, or whatever it means as well. So really the main thing is that we want to be making sure that the volume is allowing you to recover and progress, and then get better with every single iteration of training legs as well. So what we would sort of look at as like a good sort of training split is very basic. If you're quite a beginner and you're reading this, I would be training three times a week, full body. That way you're getting about 2 to 3 sets per session of hitting your quads and hammies, and then upper lower again, 3 to 4 a week, up in the upper echelon. And then, if you are in that sort of advanced realm, 5 days a week, 4 to 5 sets on leg days as well, split in between 2. It depends on what you need, really. Some people need 2 leg days. Some person can get away with 1. You can do a split of like 1 leg day and then 1 sort of posterior day where you're doing a bit of hamstrings and calves and then a bit of back. It's unlimited. There's no right or wrong. It just really depends on what fits your schedule, and it's going to be best for you to get the growth out of it as well. So you have to remember these are sets per muscle, not just for quads and hamstrings combined. So we're doing 2 to 3 sets per session on quads and hamstrings. Okay, so now really what we want to sort of move into is like here's the sales pitch. Is like you've got all the main sort of steps now. The main thing is like having someone behind you and keep you the accountability and keep you on it to as far as like continue to train hard, because it is hard to keep backing it up with legs and things like that. That's why a coach is so important as well. They can help manipulate your program and make sure that it's something that you're going to be able to progress in, and then also be able to stick with for a long time as well. So within Grounded Strength is what we do. We have fully structured workouts, clear progression guidelines, smart training volumes, a complete nutrition framework and meal plan options, and accountability from 2 coaches, myself and my wife, who absolutely love this shit so as well. So if you're, if it's something that you're looking for as far as a coach, here's some of the transformations that we've achieved together. You can click this link and it'll take you to a booking link. And of course, just follow us and make sure you do like and subscribe on the website. So again, if you have any further information, just message me on Instagram. Always keen to chat about legs and stuff like that. That's it.